Do you spend time thinking about the good things you've done, the work you've accomplished? Or does this sound like something only an overly proud person would do? Be sure to keep listening to find out why I think we need to pay close attention to each and every good thing that we do. You're listening to the Higher Attitudes Podcast. Inspiration to lift your soul. Do you ever wake up with a frown on your face, your eyebrows knit together, your mind deep in thought about all that you have to do? It's like the list-making part of your brain takes charge before you even wake up. Some days, it feels like you even dream about your stress before you wake up to it, and that's not much fun. However, not everyone wakes up this way. My wife, for example, typically wakes up happy, but she's a bit of a bedtime worrier. Her mind keeps going and going at night when she's ready to get some rest. Insomnia isn't all that helpful either. Why do we go over things again and again and again? We might be worried about something we did or said. We might be thinking about all the things that we have to do. We might be thinking about any number of what-ifs. We chew on them until they are tough and stringy. We get no benefit, but we keep on chewing. Did you know that that's the root of the word ruminate? To chew the cud. Cows may enjoy that kind of thing, but it's really not good for us humans. No matter what things we tend to ruminate on, they all seem to have one thing in common, and that's fear that we are not good enough, smart enough, gorgeous enough, funny enough, or whatever you feel you aren't enough of. Yes, we disguise our fear and anxiety as to-do lists, or as trying better, or as trying to learn from our mistakes. Now, there is little wrong with to-do lists and trying to do better or avoiding mistakes, unless we use these labels to repackage our worries about not being good enough. Because we can't resolve our feelings of low self-worth with a list or a resolution. That type of anxiety has to be flushed out like the waste product it is. But how to do that? That's the question we want answers to. Oh, and by the way, if you don't think you suffer from low self-worth, stick around anyway. Even the most accomplished amongst us often suffer from compensating for what they lack with achievements. Recently, I recommended to a friend that he focus more on the positive things he had accomplished, instead of the things that he had yet to accomplish or things he wanted to change or fix about himself. Now, this friend asked me if it was negative to focus on what needed improving in his life instead of what he had already accomplished. He asked me if focusing only on the good things we had done wasn't perhaps a little bit dishonest. He felt that focusing only on the good and ignoring the bad was only a way to ensure that problems stick around. As I thought about how I would answer his question, I realized that it is not about ignoring the bad, but instead it's about ceasing to ignore the good, because that's what most of us do. It goes something like this. We work hard at our jobs and our other responsibilities. We may be employees or bosses. Either way, there's always a lot to do. People are counting on us. Expectations must be met. It's no different for those of us who stay home to care for children. In fact, the expectations and the workload may even be higher than those at the shop or the office. At the end of the day, exhausted, we sigh with some amount of dissatisfaction because there are still boxes to be checked on our to-do lists. On the good days, we look at all the boxes we did check and we tell ourselves that we did get a lot done. But even on those days, we often don't let ourselves feel the accomplishment of the day. Instead, we struggle to hold back the minor, moderate, or even severe disappointment that we didn't get everything done. It seems that our lists are never completely finished. There is always one or two more things to do, one or two more things to help us feel less than fully successful. Yes, we can be more realistic about how much we plan to get done, but if getting things done is one of your drivers, planning less doesn't increase satisfaction, does it? It just makes us feel like we're slacking off. On the bad days, however, when we just don't seem to have what it takes to keep going, and our efforts are much less than we want them to be, we can easily feel defeated. And if we give in to this feeling, we often throw in the towel early and then look for something to distract us from our thoughts of all that we're not getting done. Our only defense is that we simply can't do it anymore. On these days, it is easy to sink into a funk that brings with it a very black and ominous personal rain cloud. So good days are bad. There doesn't seem to be a way to ever really feel like we are winning. I mean, there are occasional days of awesomeness where we get some good news or some recognition and we forget about what we haven't managed to conquer or complete yet. But it usually doesn't take us long before we hear a knock at the door and find our petulant, unfinished to-do list of personal improvement waiting with a sour look on its face. And we find ourselves back down at the bottom of the heap, struggling again to find that feeling that we are enough. But that's exactly why we're talking about this topic today, because we need to learn to flip the way we think on its head. We need to learn to see our efforts as God sees them. Now, back to my friend's question for a moment. Isn't it being kind of dishonest to ignore our weaknesses or the things we didn't get done? Well, let me clarify. I never said we should ignore these things. We want to improve and we need to get things done. But I believe we need to change our focus. What if, at the beginning of each day, we took a few minutes to review what we had accomplished recently? What if we actually wrote down anything and everything that we had completed or succeeded at? Every task we accomplished, every person we smiled at and spoke to, every kind word or deed that we did. This doesn't make us proud. Instead, we realize that we are blessed to be able to do what we do. We realize that God has been kind to us, and because He has, we are able to accomplish quite a bit. And it doesn't matter if we are coming from weeks and weeks of bad days or a string of good days. Reviewing what we've been able to accomplish fills us with renewed hope and determination. Our list of good things will push from our minds the niggling thoughts of what we didn't finish. You see, most of us pay more attention to what we lack. We don't pay nearly as much attention to what we already are. We often take all of the good in ourselves for granted, but God doesn't. He sees every good thing about us, and I believe He rejoices in each one. He cheers us on, and He is willing to help us add to our list of accomplishments. But He has a hard time helping us add to our list if we never look at it. If we are always reviewing again and again the list of things that are still not finished, the list of personal flaws that are still not conquered, it's hard to pay much attention to the list of things that we have done. Remember when we talked about chewing the cud a few minutes ago? Yeah, that doesn't help us move forward. In fact, it gets in the way of God's offered help. Here's what happens when we ask our positive and negative thoughts to switch places. We begin to see that we actually accomplished more than we should have, given all of the interruptions of the day. We see that we might have been a little too aggressive in our list making, perhaps, and we'll see that that's okay as well because we can just get to those things the next day. We learn to be okay with opposition because we recognize that even with difficulties cropping up, that with God's help, we can still accomplish a lot, especially when we recognize the good. We will smile more, feel that our efforts are more worth it. There will be fewer and fewer down days where we hide from our inability to do it all. So to my friend and to all of you who are listening, it's not about ignoring weakness or needed improvements or the things we didn't get done. It's about asking our weaknesses and needed improvements to swap places with our talents and accomplishments. If you're like me and many others, your accomplishments have been taking a back seat for most of your life. So why not for the second half of your life, let your accomplishments sit in front? It's only fair, right? Try it today. Notice every good thing you do, either at the end of the day or at the beginning of the next, or both. Make a written list at least occasionally. Try asking God if He is pleased with your efforts. If this seems really hard, start by working up the courage to ask Him if He loves you, even if you are flawed in so many ways. Feeling God's love will help you have the courage to notice your strengths. Stick with this practice of noticing your goodness, even if it feels strange or uncomfortable. Swapping negative thinking for positive thinking, well, it takes a bit of getting used to. If you do this, here's what will happen. Not only will you be relieved at what you did get done, but you'll be more motivated to add to your list of accomplishments. Frankly, you'll get more done by not focusing on what didn't get done. All those little leftovers will eventually make it to your I got it done list. And here's a bonus. If you'll begin making lists of what God has helped you to do, not only will you notice opportunities to get more done and have more spiritual energy to call upon to do it, but you'll also be grateful for the strength and energy you have. You won't always be looking for more. The energy drinks will become unnecessary. The need for sugar and fast food will begin to ebb, and you'll start to notice how much others do. And you'll be in such a good mood, you'll remember more often to say thank you and mean it. The Apostle Paul tells us in Philippians 4:8 that we should think about things that are true and honest and just, and things that are pure and lovely and of good report. He tells us to think about every virtue or any goodness or strength we find, including those within ourselves. He says if there's anything to praise, to do so. Isn't it about time we begin to notice and remember every good thing? Thank you for listening. We'd love to have you join us on Facebook at facebook.com/higher-attitudes. Do you have an uplifting thought to share? Why not join our Facebook discussion group? Visit the group at facebook.com/groups/higher-attitudes to request membership. If you'd like to leave a question about a challenge you're facing, or if you'd like to share a thought about how you've overcome negativity, call 719-301-0303 and record your question or comment. Please note that carrier rates may apply. Again, call 719-301-0303 to leave a question or comment. We hope you've enjoyed the show, and we look forward to you joining us for the next episode of the Higher Attitudes podcast. Please remember that the advice offered in this show is intended for informational purposes only. Please read our full disclaimer in the show notes.